Good evening, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. We're starting New Year 2013. Less pressure from 2012, where we don't have anymore the burden of managing summit after summit, conference after conference. So I think this year, I want to focus more on something longer term, issue that will have a bearing on Cambodia longer development agenda. And I believe that, education is probably at the heart of this long-term agenda. Education, yes, Cambodia, it's fine, but there's also opportunity outside the country where younger Cambodian, adolescent Cambodian could also get exposed and absorb the knowledge abroad, so that someday when they graduate they can come back and they can bring this knowledge back home to help continue sustaining the development of the country. I have the pleasure to have with me Ruwan Hulugall, who's with the company Ruwan Hulugall and Company, and we're going to be talking about education in the USA. Ruwan, welcome.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Or
Komisapana. Yes.
It's great to be here, and education is such an important topic. And I believe so strongly in education as a way to open doors of opportunity that is difficult to sometimes even imagine where it can take you. And it's great to be here and to talk about this.
Ruwan, I give you a few minutes to let you tell a bit about your background, so that the audience knows a bit about you.
Sure, 30 plus years in a few minutes. Let me try.
Yes.
So
you don't look that old, by the way.
Thank you. One of the things that I've done here in Cambodia for many years is that I've taught at a university.
Okay.
One of the things that I do, first thing out, first day of class, I ask my students, where do you think I'm from? And that's always entertaining. Because I've gotten responses spanning the world.
Yes.
Spanning all the way maybe from Greece all the way to India to America.
Yes.
Eventually they stumble on America. So I'm actually an American citizen. I've been in Cambodia for 7+ years. The reason why I look the way I do is because my parents are from Sri Lanka. Okay. And they moved to America. They're both doctors.
Yes.
They moved to America, and I was born in New York. I was born in New York, grew up in Las Vegas. I've been educated all over the United States. I've got my bachelor's degree from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., specializing in governance.
Yes.
Got my master's degree from the University of San Diego, specializing in international relations. I'm moving west.
Yes.
And I got my law degree from the University of Hawaii, where I was also where I was also an East-West Center fellow.
Yes.
In the meanwhile, I've done various work stints, mostly in Sri Lanka, where my parents are from. Okay. I've worked most prominently in the Prime Minister's office.
Yes.
In Sri Lanka, working on governance issues, post-war, planning post-war issues of how to bring the country together.
Yes.
So we were talking earlier about this. So it's interesting that Sri Lanka is now post-war, and they can learn a great deal from Cambodia, who's made great strides post-war. In addition, I've worked for a little bit for the UN and other agencies before landing in Cambodia.
Yes, all right.
Yes.
So tell me about Ruwan Hulugall and Company, opening doors of opportunity. I like this motto of your company.
Well, thank you. Well, Ruwan Hulugall and Company is a company. It's a consulting company that I've created in Cambodia after being here for about 5 years doing various things.
Yes.
I've been working in the education sector here for virtually all of my time in Cambodia.
Yes.
Teaching young Cambodian students, getting a feel for the youth of Cambodia. At the same time, I have worked for 2 years for the U.S. Embassy here, working on economic and commercial affairs.
Okay.
My background educationally is in law and governance, so I've tried to put everything together into a consulting company. Incorporating law, commerce, economy, and education, which is something I feel so strongly about. So,
which is now you're driving this education.
Yeah, I mean, education is something that clearly is an area which needs to be developed here in Cambodia. There's a lot of great things that are being done here, and a lot of kudos goes out to all of the private sector and
Yes,
public sector
yes.
institutions that have lifted up the education sector so much. Opening doors of opportunity is a great way to describe
Yes.
education,
Okay.
because in fact that's exactly what education does. I mean, you look at the example of the President of the United States, for example, you can look at me. In the terms of the President, he came from a middle-class background,
Yes.
his wife came from a middle-class background. They took their education very seriously. Eventually they went to great schools in the United States.
Yes.
And they're now President of the United States.
Exactly.
The first black so-called President of the United States.
Yes.
It came about as a result of his education. And you can look at example after example after example. I'm sure you have
Yes.
your own examples. I have my own examples. How education just opens the world of possibilities to us that we could sometimes never even imagine where it could take us.
Yes, indeed.
So
Indeed.
Cambodia is a very young country, as we know. Vast majority of the population is young.
Yes.
And they're still of years where, they're interested in education.
Yes.
So one of the challenges for Cambodia, I think, as you
Yes.
know, is how to bring all of these people into the system so that they receive some form of education, they can upgrade their skills, and as a result, as a collective effort, the Cambodian economy can
Yes,
gradually
indeed.
progress
Indeed.
forward.
You know, there's a survey done on English literacy. It's quite interesting. They compare Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, and they found that in Cambodia the level of English literacy is much higher. And I was wondering, I say, why? And they say, look, because Cambodia is a small country, you have no choice but to deal with foreigner, right? And English is a good language to deal with tourists, for example. Because you go to Thailand or go to Vietnam, most of the businessmen don't need to know another language. They have 80 million Vietnamese or Thai people to do business with. So in the case of Cambodia, we have no choice, right? And it's interesting because one day I went to the gym in the Intercon. I was walking out, and I saw this guy. He was on the phone, right, with his son. Impeccable English, right? And I thought he's probably one of the guests there. And lo and behold, a few minutes later, there was a tourist coming out. And he talked to the guy because he's waiting for the guy. And he's a tuk-tuk driver.
Oh, wow.
I cannot believe it. I come home, I say, look, it shocks me. But this to me, it's a symbolic a bit a way on how we strive to compete, right? Because a few years from now, that we'll be part of the ASEAN Economic Community, and in ASEAN we do not have translator. You go to a meeting, you speak English, right? Competition will be quite ferocious. There'll be a free flow of goods, of people, of service. So if you're not in a position to communicate, you will lose your edge.
Well, I think you're spot on. Cambodia is racing ahead. It's racing ahead. It's joining the global community.
Yes.
And English is the de facto language of the global community. And the reality is, if you want to interact on a global level,
Yes.
English is the language that is used. It's also the language used in the United States, which makes great ability to relate between Cambodia and the United States,
Yes.
but also the region and the world.
Yes. Now, education in the U.S., what do you have in mind? Is that only university level, or you have something a little bit much earlier than that?
Well, Sipana, I think we spoke earlier about what we are trying to do here in Cambodia.
Yes.
So we've created this event. It's called the U.S. Cambodia Education Fair.
Okay.
The first one was held in April 2012
Yes.
here in Phnom Penh.
Yes.
And it was the first American education fair which was open to the public. All
okay.
students
So it's not closed door.
and parents could come
okay.
and meet directly representatives from American education institutions.
Yes.
We're working in cooperation with the U.S. Embassy here,
Okay.
so they could also meet representatives
Yes.
from the U.S. Embassy. And of course the Embassy has a variety of scholarship programs
Yes,
and other
yes.
short-term study programs which an increasingly large number of Cambodians are partaking in.
Yes.
And so we've created this thing called the U.S. Cambodia Education Fair, which brings American university representatives to Cambodia
Yes.
to interact with Cambodian students and Cambodian parents to inform them about the different opportunities that are available potentially to their children and perhaps to themselves to study in the United States. So the first one was in April 2012. It was a historic event. It was the first time ever.
All right.
As a result of the success, we're going to have another one in January.
Yes.
Again, we're trying to make history in January.
Yes.
Because we're going to do a fair on the 22nd here in Phnom Penh.
Yes.
The day before the fair in Phnom Penh, we're going to have a mini event in Siem Reap. And the Siem Reap event will be the first American education fair ever held in Siem Reap. So again, we're making history. I think
we're reaching out further.
We're rushing ahead because I see Cambodia rushing ahead due to the efforts of everybody in the private sector and the government and everybody that's making Cambodia move forward very quickly. So we're trying to keep track with this and
the type of school, university you bring in are quite broad.
Yeah, so this time around we've got 10 education institutions coming, again, January 22nd, offering education options to Cambodian students from grade pre-kindergarten all the way up until PhD.
Oh my.
And so we have the full range of education options available for Cambodian
East Coast,
parents.
West Coast, a bit everywhere.
We've got a bit of everywhere, Sipana. We've got a school from Florida, which is offering kindergarten through grade 12, so for the younger students.
Yes.
We've got a number of community colleges from the West Coast, from Seattle, San Francisco, and a number of colleges in between, all the way from California, of course, to South Dakota.
Interesting. Every year I do entertain a few interns from the U.S., mostly from University of Michigan, because they have some students program there. And early this year, I was very happy to have an email from one of my interns. He was a law student in Michigan. That was 10 years ago. Now he wrote back. He says when he graduated, he went to work for his parent. They were in, I think it was in El Salvador, running this big textile, $20 million textile company. And now he's coming to Cambodia. He wants to do other things, in the textile industry. But it's just a good feeling that you have that linkage, And I do every year. They send me one or two, law students for a whole summer, and this is something that I wanted Cambodia also to have the opportunity to do the other way around also, being exposed. I think exposure probably is the word, because you see in the region there's a lot of good university also, let's face it, but I still believe that education is one thing, exposure to a culture is another thing, being completely submerged in another educational and cultural environment does shape how a child thinks, or an adult thinks.
That's right. There are many great universities in the region, also in the world, that Cambodia can choose from. All of them will give a different kind of experience.
Yes.
In America, there's a lot of emphasis given to experiential learning, as well as classroom learning. And so there's a lot of ability to develop other skills besides just your memorization and regurgitation of knowledge. There's a lot of synthesis, application, critical thinking, group work, etc. that's involved in U.S. education that taken collectively builds a great variety of skills that can be used successfully in any environment throughout the world. Back to the point about good quality universities. There are many great quality universities all over the world. But I think you are right that the general perception is that the United States remains the best. It's probably one of the best exports that the United States still has today. We've lost a lot. We've lost cars, we've lost phones, but we still export the best education in the world. A recent study found that 20 out of the top 26 universities in the world are still located in the United States. And so that just goes to show that the quality is still there, and it still remains the destination of choice for parents from throughout the world. And that's why we have over 750,000 international students studying in the United States last year.
Nearly a million. Eh?
Nearly a million.
My daughter, she will graduate in 2014, and already she planned to go to, well, her dream school will be the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. Okay. But I think she probably will settle for Savannah School of Art and Design.
Okay,
yes,
good.
But my son, he's 11. Already he loves engineering, he loves science. His mind's all set for MIT. West Point is his third choice. No, but I think you're right in the sense that, education is everywhere. The income, the disposable income of the Cambodian society now are getting bigger and bigger. And you see also, it's quite interesting that if you look psychologically from the mindset of Cambodian parent, the fact that we have this genocide, this void, this generational gap there, it make them turn in a major way in the sense that, look, I miss my opportunity because I was born, I grew up during a time when there was a genocide, there was communism and everything. But I sure do not want my kids to suffer what I did. And that's why you see most of the Cambodian people that I know, depending on the level of income they could save, they will send their kid to wherever they could, at whatever level, right? That's why you see for the lower middle income people who could, send their kid abroad, let's say they would do 2 years in Cambodia and then 2 years in Malaysia, for example, and then they probably do their master in the US or in London or Australia. But it depends on what they could afford, right? But for sure, the money they put aside for their children's education. Yeah. And this is something that we, when I say we, not just you and me, but as a Cambodian society, how we should push this idea about education is a long-term investment. Yeah, and this is important.
Yeah. Well, I think you've hit it on the head. Cambodians understand quite clearly the value of education, partly because of the horrible experience that people have experienced here, which I don't need to elaborate on much. But I think people do understand, and it's just a question of how do people access opportunities. Because education is the way to open doors of opportunity. But the question is, how do people of modest or moderate means access the same kinds of opportunities that people that have greater means are able to do?
Indeed.
And so
and that's how at one point it will equalize, the opportunity level. I have another thought of education in the U.S. also is that, you see, coming back with an education is one thing, but having an alumni, having friends and network in a college year, you never know what it transpires in the future. It will lead to many other economic linkage, many partnership, many business relation. And it's all start with knowing somebody on the other side of the ocean.
No, that's absolutely right. As far as I'm aware, that the most prominent alumni group in Cambodia is the alumni group that is funded by U.S. Department of State programs.
Is that right?
The U.S. Department of State funds a great number of scholarship and short-term study programs, ranging from graduate study through the famous Fulbright program to other programs which are more short-term, for example, training English teachers or other kinds of programs. So these people go to the United States, they study, and then they come back to Cambodia. They have actually been good about organizing themselves, and they've got an alumni group which interacts together, and they interact with the Cambodian community, and they do a lot of great work. I think there's a lot more room, Sapana, for developing these alumni networks outside of the scholarship programs, because the reality is that a lot more people are studying, for example, in the United States on their own initiative rather than through scholarship programs. This year alone, I mentioned 750,000 international students. Of those, 333, a great number, are Cambodians this past academic year. So, of course, when they come back, a lot of them are just going to redisperse it back into the Cambodian society. And, of course, they'll do their part. They'll start businesses. They'll enhance businesses. But at the same time, it would be interesting if we could get an American alumni group together of everybody that has studied in America.
Well, I think, studying in the U.S., it's good in a way that historically, because of the big wave of Cambodian refugee. I'm a refugee myself. When after the killing field, I went to the U.S. All my brother and sister live there, and so are many other Cambodian. You know, the link is there. The family link is there. In fact, one of the things that I was trying to tell my daughter, because I went to George Mason, not Georgetown, not as famous as Georgetown, but I told my daughter, I said, look, you know, you can apply to all the school you want, but you should not forget George Mason. She said, why? I said, well, your auntie is there, your uncle is there in case you want some Cambodian food on the weekend. But you see, I think, and I make her think a bit, because at the end of the day, it's the comfort knowing that you have loves one there, right? And if you multiply by hundreds of thousands of other cases where Cambodian refugees resettle, 30 years later, they all well settled in the U.S. They have business, they become professional. This to me is the biggest magnet to attract and give a sense of comfort to say, look, you know, why don't you come and study? At least stay with us or whatever, right? And that will make a big difference than these poor kids, you know, go to university, go to a country where they have nobody.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the number of students that are traveling to the U.S. now, I think a lot of that is they've got some kind of family, so they've got some kind of connection to connect them to U.S. institutions, kind of bring them across as a magnet, like you said.
And you know, and probably the best advisor is those who they're comfortable with.
That's right. So for me, my intention is also to not only look at these people that have relatives, because of course we want them to, you know, link up with their relatives, have that comfort, but to broaden the base. So to broaden the base of Cambodians that have access to the knowledge that all of these Cambodians that have Cambodian relatives in the U.S. have. We want ordinary Cambodians, regular Cambodians that don't have access to these U.S. networks, to have access to American university representatives that can inform them and give them advice and support towards studying in the U.S. Because, as you know, Cambodians are a close people and they like to be supported, and it's always good to have a connection with somebody. In this case, we're bringing out officials directly from the admissions offices from these schools, and so these people are always going to be accessible through the whole admissions process and afterwards. And
will somebody from the consular office in the U.S. Embassy will be there to answer, you know, visa issues?
Yeah, so the visa issue is one challenging issue. I can't say for sure that somebody is going to come. We've put in a soft request that somebody comes from the consular section. We're very happy that Ambassador Todd will be opening the event, and we're hoping we'll have a representative from the Ministry of Education. And we'll hopefully have somebody from the embassy talking about their scholarship programs. And of course somebody from Education USA to talk about different study options. And
so it'll be on the 22nd January, where?
At the Intercontinental Hotel. Good. Our goal is to get the Cambodian numbers up, because we want it, like I said, to be beyond the network. If we look at our neighboring countries to the east and west, the numbers of students that are studying from those countries are very, very high, actually. If you look at Vietnam, for example, 1 out of every 5,000 or 6,000 Vietnamese people studying in the U.S. Whereas in Cambodia, it's more like 1 out of every 40,000. And so there's a big gap there, which I believe we can quickly fill if these networks are broadened and expanded to include.
Now I feel good, because at least now the level of disposable income is there, and the attention will focus for higher, but more for quality education, right? I think it's like a Maslow hierarchy of need. You know, you start fulfilling your basic need first, but for a certain group of Cambodian family now, they're looking at moving up the ladder of quality, and this is probably an opportunity for them to reach out to you.
You're absolutely right. I think it's exactly right. Cambodia is moving forward. The basic needs, security, food, shelter, etc., have been satisfied through the great work of everybody involved, including people in the government and private sector, etc. I mean, just driving down the Russian Boulevard, you can get a good idea about how Cambodia is developing. I mean, on one side you have the Vatanak Tower, which
Yes,
is
yes.
a world-class building,
Yes.
which is coming up. It's going to require massive knowledge and
Amazing.
technology
Yes.
to be able to build and maintain.
Yes.
You've got
Yes.
Canadian Tower, you've got the Bank Street.
Yes.
Banking sector in Cambodia is growing so
Exactly,
rapidly.
yeah, yeah.
We have beautiful new government offices, the Peace Palace
Yes.
and the Friendship
Yes.
Building, representing a government that is
Yeah.
becoming increasingly complex.
Yes.
Bigger budgets, more departments, more needs to try to fulfill through the government. You drive further down the road, you have insurance companies. At the other end, you have the airport.
Yes.
And the airport, you know, massive numbers of tourists and
Yes.
businessmen are coming
Yes.
to Cambodia. And in the middle of all, you have RUPP, the
Yes.
Royal University of Phnom
Yes,
Penh,
yes.
trying to provide skills and knowledge to fulfill all of these emerging sectors in the Cambodian economy. But I think given the rapid change of advance, I think that you know, I would like to see the United States play a greater role in
Yes.
providing more expertise to help maintain and develop and uplift the economy. even
And the
further.
Cambodians appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And so the question is, how can they access this opportunity?
Yes.
Having worked in the education sector here for a long time, I know for a fact that the Cambodian students in a large way are in many ways skilled enough to study in the United States. Like you said, the English language here is quite good. Basic skills are getting better and better every day.
Yeah.
So this is something that is being developed and worked on, and you know, 10 years from now, so many Cambodian students are going to be very, very qualified to
Yes.
study in the United States.
That's very good.
But the question is, how do they access these opportunities? Because, speaking frankly, Sifana,
Yeah.
as you know, because you have children that want to study in the United States, studying in the United States can be very expensive.
Yes.
And so the question is, how do they finance their study when they are in fact qualified?
Yes, yes.
And so I've got different ideas about how people can do that, because this is what consultants
Yes,
do. They come
exactly.
up with ideas.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you're interested to
Yes.
hear about.
Well, I
Yeah.
think the problem we're running out of time is
Yeah.
always 30 minutes go very fast. Probably you will have the opportunity when you have that fair to,
Right.
to have a specialized session with people who are interested. But anyway, your last word. What do you want to convey as a message to the audience?
Well, my message to your audience is that 30 minutes does go very fast.
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
And the other thing is that education is a way to develop horizons beyond whatever you can imagine today. It is the way to open doors and move places all over the world. And so education is very, very important, and I think your audience knows this. My best message and most relevant is that while education in the United States is considered to be expensive, there are options which increasingly Cambodians will become more aware about in the form of studying in community colleges or
Yes.
applying for individual scholarship programs outside of U.S. government programs that can make education more affordable. And hopefully through different actions, perhaps in the future,
Yes.
regarding the Cambodian debt. I would love to see that Cambodian debt converted into scholarships for Cambodian students.
Very
That
good
would
point.
open up hundreds of millions of dollars of
Yes,
scholarships.
yes.
It would change Cambodia.
Yes.
And so my message is just to keep studying hard, working hard, and opportunities will become available to you.
Thanks, Ruwan, for sharing with the audience your perspective on education in the U.S. I myself is a fervent believer that the U.S. is still the premier country to send your kid to study. I'm a product of a U.S. education. Well, I had the early years of French education, but having the opportunity to compare both systems, I would say that the U.S., the way, the system is and everything, it does give a good opportunity for a student to I would say to get the best out of themselves, right? Rather than, like you say, just reciting like a parrot, in some other system. But anyway, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the audience and the studio for you to come and share with us this short brief, and we hope that your fair will be successful and hopefully you can do more frequently. I would love to help you out. You know, I will send an email to all my friends, the intellectual community, which I'm part of this group, to pass on the word, and this way you have a larger crowd to attend the fair. And hopefully it's only the beginning. There'll be more intensified event coming as the year progresses. Yeah. So thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you so much, Sipana, for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, 30 minutes as always. Sometimes I hate these 30 minutes because you barely get going, and then you know, we're almost there at the end. But consider that this is only the beginning of a dialogue. I hope to have Ruwan probably come later on, and at some point in time, maybe we can get to something a little bit more technical and give a better perspective on how we can approach this opportunity of studying and being educated in the U.S. But for me, I believe that education is the key to open doors to a world of opportunity. As a refugee, I was blessed to be a refugee in the U.S., to be exposed to U.S. education, and look where I am now. I mean, had it not been for a good education, I wouldn't be here. But I can leave this show by saying one thing, that when I went to the U.S., I was so motivated because I missed 4 years, nearly 5 years of education being in the killing field. And in my mind, I say that just give me time, give me the opportunity, and I will do it. And I finished my 4-year degree in exactly 2 years. That's how motivated I was. And I want the Cambodian other to see that time is not on your side, you know. Drive it, catch it, seize the moment. And education is the way for you in your future. So on that note, good night.